I never imagined that a simple birthday gift could unravel the life I had so carefully built. My name is Helen, a 69-year-old widow, and for as long as I can remember, my world revolved around my daughter, Katherine. I raised her alone, filling our modest home with warmth, laughter, and the faint scent of baked bread that lingered in the kitchen long after the oven cooled. I sacrificed, yes, but always willingly, because I believed that love was measured by devotion, by presence, by the quiet acts no one else ever noticed. Katherine was my pride and joy, the center of every careful plan I had made for her future. She had grown into a bright, kind woman, with an infectious smile and eyes that held the curiosity and determination I recognized in myself. She married James 6 months ago, a man who seemed perfect on the surface. He was polished, charming, and attentive, always attentive to Katherine's every word. I wanted to trust him. I truly did. But trust, as I would soon learn, can be a fragile thing. James's mother, Carol, was another story entirely. From the first time I met her, I sensed something unspoken beneath her polite words, a calculating precision in every gesture. She praised Katherine's intelligence one moment, then, with a subtle, almost imperceptible shift in tone, suggested that Katherine needed guidance in handling money or making decisions. I dismissed it as mere difference of opinion at first. Perhaps I was too protective, too wary of the mother-in-law stereotype. Yet deep inside, an uneasy knot of suspicion grew. Life with James and Carol quickly revealed cracks in the picture-perfect marriage I had imagined for my daughter. Small things, the late-night phone calls that ended abruptly when I entered the room, the subtle digs about my spending habits, Katherine's hesitation when discussing finances, began to accumulate. Each detail seemed minor on its own, but together, they painted a portrait I could not ignore. Something was off. Something was wrong. The tension came to a head one crisp autumn afternoon, as Katherine's birthday approached. I had been saving for months to give her a gift that would show not just love, but how deeply I understood her desires. A brand new car, sleek, powerful, and gleaming in the late afternoon sun. I imagined the look on her face, the rush of excitement as she ran her hands over the smooth leather, the moment of pure joy that every mother lives for. I envisioned the celebration, the laughter of friends and family, the warmth filling the room. And yet, even as anticipation built in my chest, a quiet unease lingered. I couldn't shake the sense that beneath the polite smiles and polite chatter, there were secrets waiting to surface. Secrets that would test every ounce of patience, every thread of trust one had woven into my life. As the party drew near, I realized I had a choice. Ignore the unease and hope for the best, or confront the unknown. Little did I know, the moment I handed Katherine the car, my world would tilt, revealing truths more shocking than anything I had imagined. The question was no longer whether I could protect her, but whether I could protect myself. The morning of Katherine's birthday arrived with a chill in the air, the kind that made the trees outside shimmer with frost and the sunlight appear sharper, colder, more revealing. I moved through the house quietly, arranging flowers and adjusting the ribbon on the wrapped gift box, a mixture of anticipation and unease tightening in my chest. Denise, my steadfast friend for over 40 years, arrived early, her presence a steady comfort amid the fluttering nerves I could no longer deny. She noticed the way my hands trembled as I placed the car keys atop the envelope. "Katherine's going to be thrilled, Helen," Denise said softly, her voice gentle but firm. "Just remember, trust your instincts today." I nodded, forcing a smile, though the knot of doubt in my stomach refused to loosen. I had begun noticing patterns I could no longer ignore. James's polite exterior masked an unsettling control over Katherine, subtle but relentless. He questioned her choices with a casual air, suggesting that she consult him, or worse, Carol, before making any decision. And Carol herself, she lingered too long on the smallest details. The condition of the furniture, the way the silverware was arranged, even the precise shade of my daughter's new curtains. Always observing, always calculating. When Katherine arrived, her laughter filled the hallway, bright and musical, momentarily easing the tension I had carried for weeks. She embraced me tightly, and for a heartbeat, I allowed myself to believe that perhaps all was well. But when James stepped in, his hand brushing against hers with a practiced familiarity, I saw that slight tightening of her jaw, the unspoken hesitation I had begun to notice more and more. The party began in earnest. Friends and family trickled in, their chatter filling the room like a living, breathing tapestry of celebration. I felt the weight of expectation in every eye as they gathered around, awaiting the moment I would reveal the gift. I kept reminding myself to breathe, to let the joy of the occasion shine through. Yet a simmering unease whispered that the day's true revelations might not be joyful at all. And then it happened. Carol appeared uninvited, gliding into the room with a careful smile that was almost too measured, too deliberate. My stomach tightened instantly. She lingered near the car, her eyes scanning it, lingering over every curve and gleaming surface. My pulse quickened. I wanted to intervene, to demand she step away, but the words lodged in my throat. There was something predatory in her stance, a quiet audacity that refused to be ignored. James noticed her too, of course, and exchanged a subtle nod with her, the kind of silent communication only they seemed to understand. Katherine's eyes flicked between us, confusion and embarrassment warring across her features. And in that instant, the tension in the room shifted from celebratory anticipation to a fragile, brittle uncertainty. I realized with a sinking clarity that this gift, the symbol of my love, my devotion, was now the catalyst for a confrontation I could no longer avoid. As I watched Carol inch closer to the car, smiling in a way that made my skin crawl, I understood that this birthday would not be about joy. It would be about exposure, about facing truths that had been hidden in plain sight for months. And as my hands tightened around the envelope of evidence I had begun collecting, I felt the first spark of resolve. I was no longer merely a giver of gifts. I was preparing to reclaim control of a life I would not allow them to steal. The room felt smaller than it had moments before, the chatter fading into a background hum as all eyes shifted toward the car. Carol's hand lingered on the sleek door handle, a slow, deliberate motion that made my stomach tighten. I forced my expression into calm neutrality, though my mind raced. Every instinct screamed that she had no right to touch what was mine to give, and yet she moved as if ownership were inherent, as if my presence was irrelevant. "Katherine, don't you want to see it up close?" Carol asked, her tone syrupy sweet, but layered with an edge I could feel even from across the room. Katherine looked at me, confusion shadowing her delicate features. I caught the slight tremble in her fingers, the hesitation that betrayed a mixture of guilt and fear. James hovered behind her, a shadowed smirk tugging at the corner of his mouth, carefully neutral in appearance but full of quiet amusement. I stepped forward, my voice firm but controlled. "Carol, the car is a gift for Katherine. Please don't touch it." My words were calm, deliberate, measured. But the tightening in my chest betrayed the anger simmering beneath. Carol turned her head slowly, eyes narrowing, a flash of surprise crossing her face before it was masked by faux innocence. "Oh, Helen," she said, tilting her head. "I was only curious. Surely you don't mind a little inspection." I didn't respond immediately. Instead, I studied her, watched the way she moved, the subtle arrogance in her posture. It had been there all along, this entitlement, this belief that she could manipulate her way into everything I held dear. And in that moment, I realized that patience alone would not protect me. Action was required. Later, as the party continued and laughter attempted to mask the tension, I excused myself quietly and stepped into the kitchen with Denise. We spoke in hushed tones, our words sharp and deliberate. "It's worse than we imagined," I said, my voice low but resolute. "James and Carol aren't just taking advantage of Katherine, they've been planning this. They want my house, my savings, everything I've worked for." Denise's eyes widened, but she didn't flinch. "Then we need proof, Helen. Everything. Every text, every conversation. Document it all. And you need a plan." I nodded, the weight of determination settling over me. My mind raced through the weeks ahead. Discreet recordings, careful monitoring of communications, strategic conversations that would reveal the truth without tipping them off. Each move had to be precise, calculated. There was no room for error. Back in the living room, I returned to the party, smiling politely as if nothing had happened, masking the storm that brewed beneath my calm exterior. Carol lingered near the car, watching me with that same predatory intensity, and James whispered something into her ear that made her lips twitch upward in a knowing smile. My pulse quickened, not with fear, but with the spark of resolve. I realized in that moment that the gift I had intended to celebrate love and joy had become a battlefield. And for the first time I felt a cold clarity. I would not allow them to manipulate, to deceive, or to steal from me. I would uncover everything, and when the time came, they would have no choice but to face the truth. The party went on, unaware of the quiet war unfolding beneath the surface. But I knew it had begun, and nothing would be the same again. The day of Katherine's birthday gift presentation arrived with a quiet, almost eerie tension. I had spent weeks preparing, discreet recordings of James and Carol's conversations, printed messages detailing their manipulations, and hidden camera footage that captured their calculated schemes. Denise was at my side, a silent anchor of support, as I arranged the materials neatly on the coffee table, each piece of evidence a weapon of truth. Katherine arrived, radiant as always, her smile lighting the room. But I could see the flicker of unease in her eyes, a shadow of doubt born from what she had begun to sense in the past weeks. Carol lingered behind her, gliding through the room with a poise that demanded attention, her expression carefully controlled. James stood slightly apart, a calm facade masking the tension I knew lurked beneath. I took a deep breath and began. "Katherine, before you open your gift, there's something you need to see." My voice was steady, even, but I felt the surge of adrenaline under my skin. I handed her the envelope. She hesitated, fingers trembling slightly, as she lifted the contents. As Katherine examined the documents and photographs, her eyes widened. "Mom, I didn't know," she whispered, confusion and guilt intermingling in her tone. "You did, Katherine," I said gently but firmly, keeping my gaze locked on hers. "You allowed yourself to be manipulated. And I nodded toward Carol and James, they thought they could use you to take everything I've worked for." I played the recordings. Carol's voice, sweet and conniving, detailing plans to pressure Katherine into selling my house and draining my savings, echoed through the room. James's casual instructions on how to isolate me from my own finances reverberated in the silence. The room froze. Guests shifted uncomfortably, unsure where to look. The facade that Carol and James had maintained for months cracked, revealing the raw truth beneath. Carol's face went pale, her carefully curated composure slipping as she muttered, This isn't fair." James stammered, searching for excuses, but the evidence left no room for denial. Katherine's eyes filled with tears, shame and shock battling across her face. I didn't realize." "Then realize now," I said softly, a calm authority in my tone. "I will no longer be manipulated, deceived, or taken advantage of. My assets, my home, and my dignity are mine to protect." I reached for the car keys, reclaiming the vehicle that had been part of their scheme. The gleam of the car reflected more than sunlight. It reflected a newfound clarity, a reclaiming of control. The tension in the room shifted from confrontation to quiet, undeniable truth. Carol and James retreated, their power evaporated by the undeniable evidence of their intentions. Guests whispered among themselves, glancing at me with a mixture of astonishment and respect. As I looked at Katherine, I saw her struggle between anger, remorse, and the first glimmers of understanding. I did not berate her. I simply allowed the truth to speak, knowing that it was a lesson she needed to confront for herself. And in that moment, amidst the quiet aftermath of revelation, I felt a strange peace settle over me. The betrayal had been exposed. The scheme had been dismantled. And I had reclaimed not just my assets, but the dignity and control that no one could take from me again. The days after Katherine's birthday were quiet, almost surreal. Carol and James had retreated, their scheme dismantled, their influence over my life evaporated in the wake of the evidence I had presented. Katherine remained, lingering in a haze of regret and contemplation, unsure how to reconcile the daughter I had raised with the woman who had allowed herself to be used. I didn't push her. I knew the lessons had to settle in her own time. My priority was myself, and for the first time in decades, I felt the intoxicating clarity of unburdened freedom. Denise and I packed what we needed for a journey that had long lived in my imagination, but had never seemed possible. The open road called a promise of escape and reinvention, of a life untethered by manipulation and deceit. As we left town, I glanced at the house I had fought so hard to protect. It stood silent, proud, a testament to years of careful stewardship. It would remain mine, guarded legally and financially, but I no longer needed it to anchor me. My roots, it seemed, were not tied to bricks and mortar, they were in my strength, my resilience, and the life I had earned. Driving through the countryside, the wind carrying the scent of distant pine and damp earth, I reflected on the journey that had led to this moment. Betrayal had cut deep, leaving wounds that would take time to heal, but it had also illuminated truths I might never have seen otherwise. I had underestimated my own vigilance, my capacity to act decisively, yet I had proven to myself that even in the face of audacity and greed, clarity and courage could prevail. Katherine called once during the trip, her voice trembling. "Mom, thank you," she whispered. "I see now what I didn't before. I'm sorry for letting them." "Don't focus on the past," I said, warmth softening my tone. Focus on what comes next. Learn from it, but don't let it define you. And remember, you always have the choice to do the right thing, even when others do not. The horizon stretched wide, a canvas of golden light meeting soft clouds. For the first time in years, I felt the thrill of possibility rather than the weight of fear. Life was no longer dictated by those who sought to manipulate me. It was my own to navigate on my terms. I thought about love, trust, and the deceptively simple gift of a car. It had become a symbol not of material generosity, but of vigilance, of boundaries, and the courage to confront betrayal without losing myself. In reclaiming what was mine, I had discovered something far more valuable: the clarity to see intentions for what they are, and the strength to act decisively, even when the world expects passivity. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose, I felt an unfamiliar but exhilarating lightness. Denise glanced at me, smiling, and I returned it, realizing that the most profound journeys are not measured by distance, but by the reclaiming of one's own power. I didn't know what awaited me in the days ahead, but I knew this. I was no longer a pawn, no longer a victim. I was free, truly free. And that freedom, after a lifetime of devotion and sacrifice, was worth more than anything I had ever given or lost.